Bienvenido a Second Acts Podcast. F. Scott Fitzgerald once wrote, "There are no second acts in American lives, but there are on Second Acts Podcast." And for the first time on our show, that includes English lives as well. As former Robert Palmer Addicted to Love video model in the face of Chanel, Mak Gilchrist joins us from across the pond in London for this episode. This is episode 4, and I am your host, Sean Riley. Back after this.
Hi, I'm Pavo.
And I'm Neil.
And we're in the cockpit of the That's No Moon podcast.
And we're flying from a galaxy far, far away to bring you the hottest, the latest Star Wars weekly news.
Hotter than the two suns of Tatooine.
Every Wednesday we'll bring you the up-to-the-minute news.
And rumours and gossip from everything going on in the Star Wars universe.
With special episodes including movie commentaries and trailer breakdowns.
So, if you're looking for the best Star Wars podcast
to listen to while sat on the toilet having a po,
or relaxing drinking a nice glass of Qui-Gon gin and tonic,
visit our website pancast.co.uk. Download them from Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or other podcast apps.
That's No Moon.
It's a podcast.
Welcome to the Something Random podcast, where sometimes we talk about movies, sometimes we talk about television, but we always talk about something random. I'm your host, Charles.
And I'm Michael.
I'm Scotty.
Hey, this is Joel.
And every week we answer questions from our audience like...
Where should the next series of CSI take place?
I think CSI Underwater would be good.
CSI the Moon.
CSI Atlantis.
CSI Universe? Is that what they're going to do next? Is this an SG-1 joke?
That could work.
Follows logically.
At the end of every episode we make movies. Michael, go!
Good sequel. Finding Nemo 2.
Wait, there's
Oh,
already a
there's
Finding
already
Nemo
a
2.
Finding
Sandlot 2.
They remade that.
No, there's Sandlot 2
What movie
that's
deserves a sequel?
think-
Empire Strikes Back.
Wait, that already has a sequel. What?
That is a sequel.
What? That is a sequel. You can find our podcast wherever podcasts are found. And as always, guys, thank you so much, and have yourselves a wonderful week.
We're joined on the podcast today by Waco Tribune-Herald videographer and editor Chris Oliver. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Happy to be here, Sean.
I have in my hand a top 100 Billboard singles list from the year 1986, and I thought we would discuss the most memorable, for better or worse, videos from that particular year. Video number 89, Walk This Way by Run DMC, featuring Aerosmith. Any memories of that one, Chris?
That was probably the first time I ever saw Aerosmith. I think that was just before their comeback. And I remember Steven Tyler being a weird-looking guy. But that was a pretty cool video. It was like breaking down the walls, kind of like...
Literally.
A metaphor, yeah. Literally breaking down the walls. And metaphorically. That was a pretty cool video. That song's probably way too low on the list at 89. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, agreed.
DMC, I mean, they had that... Their first album was pretty big. I don't remember much after that mid-'80s, but...
Yeah,
you know,
I think they had a single or two that charted, and they had the fortune of making a sort of Christmas song that had
that was great.
That's always a good financial move to do that.
Christmas and Hollis Queen. Yeah, that's
It's
great.
become a staple of every middle class home.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, it's not Christmas if you don't play that song.
Exactly.
Because I can totally relate to it. Growing up, nowhere near Hollis Queens.
Yeah. Did you ever wear your Adidas without shoelaces after the video?
I never had Adidas, but I think I did the whole no shoelaces thing. That was
There.
kind of an 80s thing, though.
Oh, yeah.
Or didn't tie the shoelaces, and that was kind of stupid. But
Look at number 87. Here's kind of a strange entry. Nikita by Elton John.
So that was the Elton John fights the Cold War, or goes across the a Berlin Wall to find love with a woman, right?
Oh, according to the video, at least.
I don't think he was too into Nikita, but I mean that wasn't. I don't know. No, it's an okay song, I guess. It was an '80s thing to be all about Russia and to fight. You know, as an '80s kid, I'd like seeing any kind of throwback Soviet stuff. But I mean,
Well,
it's
what
okay.
what do you think it was about Elton John that really swayed Nikita to his side? Was it the Letterman's jacket and the straw hat, or
The mullet. Oh, he did have a. He had a mullet. He had like a. What would you call it? Like a truck driver's hat. He's just all. I mean, he's like. What is he? This is the all-American Elton John, the very rare all-American Elton John. He had a car and a camera, and I'll just assume you couldn't get those things in the Soviet Russia. So.
yeah? Fine. Let's move to number 80. How about "Sleeping Bag" by ZZ Top? Do you think that's one of their best videos?
Well, I love the ZZ Top videos from the 80s. And I love that there are always like the car would show up and it would have those girls who would solve all your problems. So, and this one, I mean, it's a pretty good one. It's pretty out there. It's like, it's out in the woods and they're invaded. There's like a home invasion.
You have a cabin.
Yeah. Is this the girl from Does it have the girl from Nightmare on Elm Street in it?
No, I don't think that's
It
her.
looks a lot
Heather
like her.
Langenkamp, is it?
Yeah. I don't know. It looks a lot like her. I could be wrong though.
I don't know. I didn't notice.
I like how the bad guys are pursuing them in Bigfoot because this being the 80s. But yeah, those are always cool. They always those videos are always good. The ZZ Top ones always telling like a little story, a very over the top, insane story, but
Yeah.
it's a pretty good one.
I think I like Legs better than this one. But
Yeah, me too.
What's kind of strange about this one is, number one, like you said, the guys, doing a home invasion of a cabin out in the woods, stealing the cash or whatnot from under the floorboards. But at the end, no one ever gets the cash. The ZZ Top spaceship comes out and
See, I think what was that song? They had another one. I think this
or she's a rough one or something like that. I'm a rough one.
Rough Boy.
Yeah, rough.
That's
boy.
what it led into, yeah. Yeah, they were starting to lose steam by that point. But yeah, but the ones I remember the most were Legs, of course. That's the most famous one.
Well, what's strange about this video is, they're pursuing these home invaders to get their money back, but the ZZ Top spaceship actually comes and attacks the guys, the rednecks, in a monster truck, and all the money just flies away. So no one ever, winds up getting the money at the end, and somebody dies during the video. And I can't figure out if it's the protagonist or the girls.
God, that girl looks a lot like the girl from Nightmare on Elm Street. I think it's her.
You're right. I didn't notice.
I don't know why she'd be in a music video, but I like how they flew around the Sphinx to get back to America. That's like the shortcut, through Egypt.
It's a very realistic CGI.
Oh yeah, outstanding.
Well,
But yeah,
right below number 80, Sleeping Bag, is Bad Boy by Miami Sound Machine. Surely you have some thoughts about that one.
Miami Sound Machine.
Miami Sound Machine.
What are your thoughts on it?
My thoughts are, I think Cats was probably very big at the time. Thus, we have Cats in the video.
You know, does this also, lead into, didn't Paula Abdul, she had an animated cat.
She did.
And, I think this was a trend. Yeah, this had to be obviously very Cats inspired.
How about number 73, which has to be a contender for the worst video in this entire list? Tarzan Boy by Baltimora. What do you think about that one? Is that not just the worst?
Well, it has a cheesy appeal to it, I guess. I've noticed I hear that song like a lot now for some reason.
It's
more than
definitely a commercial advertisement staple.
Yeah.
But I dare say the Commodore 64 rendered graphics don't hold up still today.
No. No, they don't hold up. It's yeah. And he's a weird looking dude. I mean,
He is. That's funny enough. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, wow, you almost want to just watch the video just because he's such a strange looking guy.
And like, that's not the noise Tarzan makes. I guess you couldn't use that one. Maybe it was copywritten, so I'll make up my own and call it Tarzan Boy. It's a pretty, I don't know. It's a pretty weak song.
Yeah.
But I like these kind of videos from the 80s where they just didn't know what the hell they were doing, so they just, let's just throw a bunch of shit together and call it a video. We'll have you in a newspaper running around in a jungle and inside the photos, and it'll be great. It'll be awesome.
Yeah. You really
It'll hold up.
You didn't need much of a concept. You just kind of showed up on the set, and it was potluck, I think.
Yeah.
How about number 60, We Don't Have to Take Our Clothes Off by Jermaine Stewart?
That sounds like that's like a line. Like, well, we don't have to take our clothes off because you're thinking,
well,
I don't want to put any pressure on you, but by the end of the night, the clothes are coming off. If you're Jermaine Stewart, come on.
but we don't have to.
Yeah.
But they're probably coming off.
Not a very memorable video, I guess. Kind of just concert footage.
Yeah, I think the thing that I remember most about that video was so happy and upbeat, so positive. We talked about Saturday songs before, and this is a true Saturday song right here.
Get up and get your chores done.
Yeah.
Moving to the beat. What's the cherry wine, though? He says, so we can drink some cherry wine. What the hell?
I bet the market for cherry wine really spiked when that video came out.
Is that, I guess, yeah, was that sounds like just cheap. I've never had cherry wine. It sounds like something that would be, like.
It doesn't sound very classy or sophisticated.
No, not really. I don't think.
It's on the Boone's farm.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't think in France, and you go to get their best wine.
No.
We got our very best cherry wine.
Yeah.
Or Italy or something.
Definitely not as classy as Video 59, Take Me Home Tonight by Eddie Money.
I saw Eddie Money in concert.
Did you?
He came here to Waco, Texas.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. No, that's and Eddie Money's one of those. He's kind of like, he's no one's favorite, but you like him. You got to admit you like the songs that they were out. So
yeah,
he was real quick. I'll just say he was really a cornball though in concert.
Well, how so?
Like, I don't know. He's just real like, hey, like. One thing I remember, like, he was, one of those guys, that's the greatest town ever, like, full of crap like that. But he said, like, the best Mexican food in the world is in Waco, Texas. And we were all like, well, that's not true. Except for, like, in Mexico, maybe. Or, like, anywhere else in Texas. But it was stuff like that he would say, But I guess it was cool that he was enthusiastic to be there. So, wait a second. Hold on. Well, there's one we got to talk about. Kenny Loggins' Danger Zone.
Is there actually a video to that? I mean, I just remember Top Gun.
There
of course.
is a video to
Was
that.
it-
Well, I'll tell you what the video is real fast. Of course, it has a lot of
course.
Top Gun footage. It's mostly Top Gun footage, but they intersplice it with Kenny Loggins, like I guess Apocalypse Now style. He's in his room with a ceiling fan going, and he's got his sunglasses on, like thinking back on.
Well,
war, I
because
guess.
Martin
I mean,
Sheen,
he's like-
Kenny Loggins. I mean, the
Yeah, that's the same. And he's just like, and he's getting real intense in his room with his sunglasses, like into the danger zone. It's cheesy, but you know what? I probably
well, the
loved it.
problem with Kenny Loggins videos when he decides to interject himself into the videos is that you really can't get past that ear to enjoy the music video.
I didn't
Never
notice
noticed
the ear.
Kenny Loggins ear.
All right, I'll look that up. I'll look up the ear.
Ooh, 29. Papa Don't Preach, Madonna.
Yep. Kind of surprised that song's this low. Thought it'd be higher up. Yeah, that's her and Danny
Yes,
Aiello
yes.
is her dad, right? Her getting pregnant. She's gonna keep the baby, so that's good.
Yeah.
I remember her dancing, and like it had that overhead shot of her
With the
dancing.
spotlight on her.
Yeah. I remember she wore a shirt that said Italians do it better, which when I was overseas I bought for my sisters because we're Italian.
Yeah,
so.
same here.
So and I remember that video was pretty
Tell
good.
the truth. Did everyone not want Danny Aiello as their dad after that video?
Yeah, like he's so understanding.
He's got that tough Italian exterior with the soft heart.
Yeah. that's him. That's perfect description of him.
I know you remember Song 24, Sarah by Starship. Not to be confused with Jefferson Starship, not to be confused with Jefferson Airplane.
Sarah. They were terrible. Starship
What? Are you
was
crazy?
awful. They
How?
really were. How?
Explain yourself.
I can't even explain
Okay.
it. It defies words. So what are the other hits? Of course they have We Built the City on Rock
Okay.
and Roll.
Well,
They
you
have
just
another
glossed
one.
past that as if it were nothing. That was a monster hit.
It was.
And don't forget
Well-
the song on the soundtrack for Mannequin.
That's the one I'm trying to think of.
Nothing's Gonna Stop Us.
Nothing's gonna stop us now.
You don't produce this kind of gold without having some
Well,
kind of
nothing
substance
is
as
gonna
a
stop
band.
us now.
What do you remember about the video, Sarah?
Who? Wasn't it just him singing? I mean, I don't remember much about it.
I seem to recall a black and white video with the tornado, and they're down in the storm cellar. That was a good. Yeah,
Is that really it?
that's a good video.
Well, why was he singing to Sarah then? Was she in there with
I don't
him?
know.
Well, if it's such a good video, you don't
Well,
remember.
I remember the aesthetics.
Oh yeah, you're right. I'm looking it up right now. Yeah, it's set in and oh, he's thinking back. It's like about his mother because she died in the thing. Okay, that's pretty sad. It's a
that's
a heartbreaking
contained for
video.
me. Shall we talk about number 23, Sledgehammer by Peter Gabriel?
Well, that's probably the most famous video of the year, probably of all time.
Probably one of the most memorable ones on this entire list.
Yeah, I mean it's fantastic. I mean, especially like the time it takes to do that stop motion. Well, it just takes hours to do, and they did that like second, word by word. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
I mean, who thought that we would transcend Gumby by the 80s with this Peter Gabriel video?
Yeah.
I wasn't a big fan of the song, actually. Maybe it was because of the vast overplayedness of the song in the video, but I just really didn't care for it for whatever reason.
I don't think the song would be remembered without the video. It's a fine song. I mean, it's not one of my favorite 80s songs. If it's on the radio, I may listen to it.
Yeah.
But I mean, you had to. So you don't like the video?
I
or you do
don't.
like the
I
video?
don't care for the song either. Funny enough.
You don't like the video?
No, I don't.
Not really.
Yeah.
Yeah, but stop motion's awesome though.
Oh,
I think.
maybe in Clash of the Titans. I don't know.
Man, you're in the minority on that one. I would assume.
Hey, remember that TV show called Sledgehammer that was out roughly about the same time?
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we'll move on.
I don't think the producers and general public do either. Okay.
All right. Glory of Love. Well, I remember that video because it had a Karate Kid
Yes.
scenes in it.
Yes.
And Peter Cetera was such a freaking cheeseball. You know what love is. Oh, wait, that's another song. But we did it all for the glory of love. We fought.
Yeah.
We fought your enemies for the glory of love.
Yeah, that movie didn't deserve that the quality of that song, in my opinion.
Maybe you're right.
The talents of Mr. Cetera.
No. I don't think the world deserves it.
Probably right.
Okay.
Song number 10, which is our reason for being today, Addicted to Love, featuring, or I guess I shouldn't say featuring, but starring Robert Palmer. Of course, Mak Gilchrist was the bass player in the video.
And it is a great concept. You got to give it up for him for that one. Now, when I went back and watched that a few times, I did notice that you can't look at the drummer because that will spoil the illusion. Oh yeah, obviously none of them are playing, but like the guitarists and the keyboardists, at least they're like strumming, and you can buy the illusion. But the drummer is so clearly not coming anywhere near playing the drums.
You know, it's hard to fake drums.
Yeah. Well, they weren't recording audio on the set, so maybe they should just let her bang it out. I mean, you'd probably want to kill yourself afterwards after hearing her play it, but
You think Mr. Palmer maybe got annoyed?
maybe he did. He's like, yeah, I guess. Yeah, maybe he did. Couldn't they have put like towels on the drum and you wouldn't notice it? I don't know.
I'm not sure.
What do I
That'd
know?
have been a good question to ask.
What do I know?
Robert Palmer really has to thank MTV because I think without the video really made the song a hit, I think, instead of the other way around.
Yeah. It was probably a pretty good song. I mean, he wouldn't be remembered, I think, without that video. Yeah, I think the song may have been a hit, but it wouldn't be remembered without the video.
Really? I think it's probably an uncharted song without the video.
Think so?
That's my thought.
Might as well face it, you're addicted. I don't know. It's hard to tell now. You just can't separate them anymore. But I think what makes it last is like there's nothing like the look of it. There's nothing really to tie you to the 80s. Like they have the black dresses, slick back hair. You know, they don't have leg warmers or, swatches on or something. I mean, it kind of has a timeless look to it in that way. I want to know why he wasn't wearing a jacket. Why do I want to know that?
Oh, that's
Why?
I think it was supposed to make the audience infer that Robert Palmer was getting down.
Yeah.
He was getting funky fresh, maybe.
This was like After Hours.
Oh, talk about an unlikely pop star for the 80s. So he had to have been pushing 30 or 40 in that video, huh?
Yeah, he was a late bloomer when it came to music. Or at least, I mean, I guess he did music for a long time, but I mean late bloomer in terms of becoming a star.
Yeah, he was around a long time before he finally broke out.
Well, he had another song on this list that we passed, I Didn't Mean to Turn You On, which had the same exact concept.
Yeah. Double dipped.
I think he triple dipped.
Well, didn't Peter Gabriel double dip too? Didn't he have another stop motion video after Sledgehammer?
Big time. Very similar video.
Yeah, it's not cool. It's not
No.
cool.
Got to do it once and get out. Don't do sequel. Well, of course, ZZ Top triple, quadruple dipped with the car and the girls.
This would probably be a good segue into our interview with Mak Gilchrist. But Chris, I want to thank you for hanging in there after the all the technical difficulties and the unfortunate inability for you to join us on the Skype interview as planned. But I hope this was a good consolation prize to you to discuss 1980s videos.
Yeah, it was a nice journey down memory lane. So I wish I had gotten a chance to talk to her, but I'll just have to move on.
True or false, was a musician hired to teach all of the Addicted to Love models how to play the guitar, but quit in frustration an hour into the music video shoot?
False. But it's a false with an element of truth. The element of truth is that in those days, the musicians' union would insist that if anyone played or was seeming to play an instrument in a music video, they either had to be musician union member or there had to be a musicians union member of that instrument present. So there was a bass player, a couple of guitar players, a keyboard player and a drummer behind the camera. They had to be present, they had to be paid because us miming the instruments meant that they would be out of a job for doing it. So they didn't have legs like ours. So, however, I thought it was a great thing that they were there because then they showed us where to put our fingers, how to look like we were playing. Nobody quit. Are you kidding me? They got a free lunch. They were poor musicians. No, and we had wine. No, they stayed there. I had a lovely conversation with a couple of them. So they were there, but they didn't quit.
So take us to how this all began. You obviously were already into the modeling world, and is that how they found you, or how did they go about putting together the four of you for the music video?
Okay, yes, I was already quite an established model at that stage. I was doing very well. And the director of the video was a man called Terence Donovan, who was a very, very well-known photographer. His lineage had gone way back to the 60s. He was one of the swinging 60s original London photographers, fantastic, an absolute legend, who'd now got into film and video. And I'd already shot a couple of covers with him and editorials. And at the time, music videos were kind of a new thing, and we weren't really quite sure if they were a fad. And, you know, in those days, as it is in the case nowadays, you are very careful to make sure that you don't lose clients because you've worked with someone else. Yeah? So you get to a stage in your career where you start turning down work because you want to keep Vogue happy, or you want to keep, Chanel happy or something, because you know you're working with them, and they'll say, oh, you've worked with something that's lesser than us. We can't work with you anymore. So we were sort of almost a little bit like that about music videos. We didn't really know. It was a new thing. So when the agency called me and said, so, another music video request for you, and I'd been turning them down at that stage. But this one, Terence Donovan is directing. I was like, oh, okay, well, love Terence. He's great. He's such a great guy to be around. Always have a great day. It will be classy. Who's it for? Robert Palmer. Oh, huge fan of him. I loved him. All the way back to Vinegar Joe days with Elkie Brooks. I was a huge fan of his, and he'd also recently worked with Sly and Robbie, and I'm a massive reggae fan as well. So I was like, oh, 00, okay. How much? Oh, no money in it. There's very little money in it. So I was like, oh, okay. Oh, well. It's Terence. It's Robert Palmer. And there was also Liz Tavares, I think the stylist was. And she was a really key, big stylist. So I knew there would be quality. And so, yes, so then that's how they came about. They'd obviously contacted the agency asking for me. He had a look. He knew that I couldn't make the casting because at that stage I was very busy. I didn't have to go to many castings. You just called and my agency said, well, she'd consider it or not. I was just at that sort of zenith point of my career. And so the first I saw of anyone was on the day when I turned up at the studio. I think it was an 8 a.m. It was actually quite a decent call time. It was about 8 a.m. in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so on that note, because stateside about that time, the video was 1986, if I recall, Robert Palmer wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't really a name that many of us would have known in the U.S. Maybe a few from the Power Station days, something like that. But you seem to be a pretty big music file. In fact, maybe the biggest music file out of the entire group of models who went down the shot that day. So, how did you get into music, and how did it become such a big influence on your life?
It just always was there. I grew up in London. Throughout, I grew up in Chelsea, which was the epicenter of cool back in the swinging 60s. I went to school in West London, which had, this was in the era of, the Sex Pistols. They were born from Vivienne Westwood and Malcolm McLaren. Vivienne Westwood's shop was behind my junior school, and our game in lunch would push ourselves into the punk shop. I dyed my hair green the first time when I was 12. It's just there. It was part of my DNA. It was always all around me. There was the Clash were just slightly older than me, but they were all they were the big brothers of people that I was at school with. So, and I was in school in the area that they went to school, and London was a smaller place then, and so there were certain parts of London where if you moved, you kind of knew various people. So it was just always there, and it was my life revolved around music. I didn't have a particularly happy time as a teenager at school, so music was my savior. Going to live gigs, it was something I saved up for, and I got myself a Saturday job at about the age of 13, just so I could go to at least a couple of gigs a week. It was just always been a massive passion of mine.
And it's interesting because you talk about your punk roots and listen to the Sex Pistols and things like that. When you ultimately enter the fashion modeling world, was there sort of a contrast between your punk rock roots and the glamorous fashion model world, or did you feel like they kind of meshed pretty well?
Well, meshed pretty well, because I think that the British models were always very different. We were always slightly sort of left field in the way we approached it. I remember when I first moved to New York, and the American clients would say, when you go in on a casting, I can tell you're English before you've even opened your mouth, because you don't have a stitch of makeup on. You're walking with Adidas sneakers in. You're wearing a second-hand shift dress. And obviously, our hair was brushed and cleaned, but it wasn't boofed in any way. This was the 80s, remember?
Right.
And we were just we had our own look. We just had our own look, and we just well, hey, if you can't see that I've got great bone structure and good skin, then you're not really looking. I don't need to plaster my face with makeup for a casting. Look at my portfolio. That's what I look like with makeup. I'm a chameleon. I can change. And I think Kate Moss was a real example of that. She just took it down a whole level, where she just looked like she just got out of bed and was just drop dead gorgeous at all times, So she reached, I guess it's a bit kind of rock chicky in a way, but we're in our own way.
Right.
So I happened to tread on someone's foot at a underground lift going up from the train platform into the ticket hall. And I apologized to this lady, and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I was late for work at the time, and I was in between courses at college, and I sort of got a job in between. And she ran after me, and it was in Covent Garden, and she tapped me on the shoulder, and I had bleach blonde hair with kind of roots. It was all over the place, kind of mad clothes or whatever I was wearing in those days. I've always been quite a tomboy. And she tapped me on the shoulder. She said, "Excuse me." I said, "Look," I said, "I'm sorry. I'm late for work." She said, "Yeah, no. I just wanted to ask you, are you a model?" And I just carried on. She said, "No, really, stop a second." And I was about 18. It was late. That's quite old to be scouted. I mean, you get scouted normally around 14. Mm-hmm. She gave me her card and she pressed it into my hand. She said, "Think about it." And I'm like, "I'm late for work. I'm sorry about the shoe thing," because I did actually scuff up her shoe. I put it in my back pocket, and then I've just forgot about it. And then a couple of days later, my best friend came in to visit me at work, and we went to lunch, and I went to get out my wallet out my back pocket, and I was like, "Oh, this happened." And she said, "Well, have you gone?" I said, No. There's lots of shysters out there. They probably want to make me pay for some portfolio, take my clothes off. I'm not interested. As if I could be a model. She said, "Well, Emma's a model, Emma was my nemesis at the time. She was my boyfriend's ex-girlfriend." And I was like, "Really?" "Yeah. Apparently she's got a cover." I was like, "Really? Oh, right." Yeah, and a proper agent. Oh, funny that. Okay. So then Q, Cayman, my bestie, dragging me into the agency. Come on, I just want to see what it's like. Let's see what it's like. You will know if it's the real deal or not. Come on, we're smart enough. So we walk in, and the reception desk is sat there, and above the reception desk is a huge blow-up picture of a cover that was out that month. And I'm looking at Emma on the cover.
Wow.
Oh my God, I've just been scouted by a real bona fide model agent because I know she's got a real one. And I was about to leg it, and Cayman just pushes me in, closes the door, and then the lady whose shoe I'd scuffed comes out and said, I've been waiting for you. And then I sat down with her, and that was that. Oh, hang on, I've got a call coming in, sorry. There we go. So that's that. That's how that happened. It was totally accidental. And Emma and I are very good friends to this day, funnily enough.
Okay, well, I was going to ask about that, but I'm glad to see that you kind of mended your ways since then. So that's an amazing story. Well, how do your parents, your family at the time, how do they reconcile this punk rock girl who's, noticed in you said the subway? Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Who's suddenly propelled into this entirely new glamorous fashion world? How does what does the family? How do they respond to this?
Okay, so my mom and dad, when they were together in the 60s, he was in advertising. He did a lot of photography for fashion. My mom did modeling in her day in the 60s as well. So both of them didn't have a problem with it, actually. My mother saw it as a means for me to be able to travel, which I love to do, and also get some money together, she said. So maybe you can sort out your life and think about going back to college, which in those days was free in the UK.
Mm-hmm. But
I wasn't quite ready for it. I was doing graphics and design at the time, and photography, like my father. But I was a little bit too young at that age. I'd gone straight from school at 16 into college, and I was winning awards and things like that, and it was all too much. I couldn't quite handle the success at that stage or cope with the fact that I was younger by about 6 years than most people in my class.
Mm-hmm.
So I dropped out. But Mum wasn't having me not doing anything, which is why I was doing that job when I trod on the lady's foot. So it was all regarded as some kind of serendipity, like, oh, well, finally the universe is sorting Mac out because
Right.
we don't really know what to do with her. She's caught in between this rock and a hard place where she's really quite good at what she does, but she's just too young to cope with it. And I was, as I said, I'd had a really not a great time as a teenager at school. My friends were lovely, but I didn't enjoy the learning environment. I have a bit of dyslexia, and in those days they didn't really know what to do with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sort of fell in between the cracks. And I guess what I needed was a bit of a break from the whole education system and to do a bit of growing up. Mum was like, well, go travel. She was German. She left Germany. She got out of Germany, post-war Germany, by becoming an au pair, and she worked in Paris and then came to London, and that's how she met my father. So she saw it as a way of me finding something, a path to walk upon to see where I went. And we always thought maybe 3 years, but, here I am, whatever it is, over 30 years later, and I'm still represented by a model agency, so...
Right.
Yeah.
It's almost like the prodigal daughter returning to the family business. Finally, I could see that you probably breathed a sigh of relief to see that you entered that world. So that's interesting. I think.
Well, you remember, my mum was one of the first people to help me dye my hair, because the first time I did dye my hair green, I used her food colouring from the store cupboard. But I was too dumb to know that you're meant to peroxide your hair first. So what I was left with was this kind of pond water green. It wasn't at all attractive or punk. It just looked stupid. Mum came in, fell about laughing, and said, right, you need to know how to dye your hair, and got some henna for me and dyed it with henna, which is a natural dye. But we left it on 2 hours, so it was bright orange when it came out. And then I was happy.
Musing while boozing, because the best thinking happens while drinking. Hot topics over cold drinks.
I'm Mike. And I'm Carl. Do you like to laugh? And do you love to drink? Check out musingwhileboozing.com.
We can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. Musing While Boozing, where the next round is always on us.
What's up, everybody? I'm Sean.
I'm Patrick.
And we are About Time!
Hey, About Time's a comedy show driven by laughter, featuring sketches, interviews, and hilarious conversations. And every week, we get a new guest.
He ain't lying. We got a guest every single time, and when we do, we ask that guest 10 questions.
10
Which are just random and off the top of our head. We have a lot of fun with our sketches and characters, so check us out. We're on iTunes, we're on abouttime.libsyn.com, and iHeartRadio, and anywhere books are sold.
Get to your library.
I want to quickly talk about just one thing, and then I'd like to kind of move into what you're doing, what you're up to these days. But I noticed 1998, you actually have a film credit for Stepmom, starring Julia Roberts and Susan Sarandon. And I had to go through and play the film to catch you. And there you are opposite Julia Roberts in sort of an interesting role. You're Rapunzel in a castle. How did that come about?
Chris Columbus is the director, right?
Right.
And I did a TV commercial. Oh gosh, forgive me, I'm not very good at remembering cars' names. Was there a car called the Fifth Avenue or something? Anyway, it was a Pontiac or something. Oh, I can't remember. It was an American make of car, and it was called the Fifth Avenue. And we did this whole commercial. And
I think that's Chrysler.
It was. Sorry?
Chrysler Fifth Avenue, maybe?
Yes. And, but, okay, so that's kind of random. Okay, fine. But guess what? They played it in the commercial break of the Super Bowl. So I didn't know how important that was at all. You know, I've been busy going about my way. I was living in the East Village in New York. I'd be regularly walking past newsstands, and there was magazines with me on the cover. There was billboards up. I'm on the TV on commercials. Nobody's ever troubled me. That commercial, when it was played on the break of the Super Bowl, then all of a sudden people were like, oh my God, it's you! You know, it's like, wow, I had no idea about how that spot is really a legend spot, isn't it? So, yes. So it came back from that commercial, see me on that commercial, and then I got that part. It's not really a part, it's I get dressed. What was really great about it was that it was also Ed Harris, wasn't it? He's in the credits, so he was there that day.
Sure is.
Such a gentleman as well, and I actually, funnily enough, I was quite surprised by that. I shared the Winnebago with Julia in the morning, and I was really surprised by that. And all she wanted was toast. That's the only moan she had. Otherwise, she was a very nice lady. Very nice lady. And so they dressed me up as this princess, as this Rapunzel. And Chris Columbus and the and the producer, whose name escapes me, they said, we're bringing in our children today because we've told them about a princess here. You know, will you play along a bit? And I was like, it was my pleasure. So they brought in their kids, and they kind of like, they were just like little wee ones. I should imagine anywhere between 4 and 6 years old, like perfectly able to believe that that's a real princess. And I said how delighted I was to meet them. And of course, the English accent then therefore proved I must be a real Rapunzel, you know. And it was such a lovely day. And really all I had to do, because I'm in this scene where it's shot in Central Park, and I'm in that tower in Central Park. And there's a guy climbing up my braid, which has obviously all got like rigging underneath it. Mm-hmm. And then I'm rigged backwards to stop me falling out of the tower. So there's all this kind of amazing, there's the stuff that you don't see is quite fantastic. You know, they kept me very safe for obvious reasons. And really all I had to do is look a bit petulant and for my cleavage to heave. And I didn't have to do much else. But for me, the highlight of the day was those little faces looking up at me and absolutely believing I was a fairy tale princess. And I kind of went home at the end of the day just like, wow, had toast with Julia Roberts, hung out with Ed Harris. But those kids' faces, oh, bless their hearts. And that, it's just sort of, it was one of those days where you're like, wow, that was a big day, really big day. But it was fun. It was really good fun.
Great. And I think a number of people would be surprised to find, if they're not already following your career, that, you worked pretty steadily throughout the 80s, 90s, and so on. I mean, you accomplished some great things. You've been photographed by greats like Helmut Newton, which I know you have a great story about that. And, you were the face of Chanel Allure perfume in 1998. And you said you're still working as a model these days, but you sort of moved on to in a new direction of your life, where you're doing some interesting things around London and whatnot with gardening, as you call guerrilla gardening and things like that. Can you kind of explain a little bit, or talk a little bit about what your edible bus stop is all about and what you all are up to regarding that?
Okay, so the Edible Bus Stop Studio is a landscape architecture and design consultancy. We define ourselves as that because we've actually come quite a long way since our 2011 roots of being guerrilla gardeners. We're a bona fide landscape architecture firm now. Although I'm not a landscape architect, my business partner is. So what we do is we look at spaces that are often ungardened or badly gardened. And we look at those sites as a way to create community hubs and landmarks, provide wayfinding routes, or just improve green infrastructure. So there's many levels. So we maybe work with local borough councils, where we create pocket parks. We love spaces that aren't pretty and areas that are challenging, because then the impact you have is far greater. We'll work with business investment districts. This is something we have in the UK, where a whole area is taken over by a BID, a business investment district, and all of the businesses in the area pay a little bit of money into this pot to improve the infrastructure of the area, especially the public realm. So it drives footfall to your businesses. It makes people feel safer. It's a nicer place to be. It's a good all round. It's especially good for business. So we work with them, creating interesting spaces. We'll work with big-time property developers who are doing big schemes but have to engage with the existing community. So we provide a way of making that communication, but it's normally through quirky design-led planted areas. We've worked with the British Council on a project in Albania, of all places, wonderful country. Then we also do things for festivals, so one-off pop-ups things. So we've worked with the South Bank Centre here in London, which is the big cultural area of London. Our projects are quite diverse. Our clients are very diverse. I'd say the commonality between all our projects is they are design-led, they are planted, they always have seating. I'll come to that why. And biophilia. Biophilia is the innate connection all humans have with nature and how it makes them feel better. So biophilic design is what we promote. And that in involving from a ground up level as opposed to top down. When we go into an area, we make contacts through various streams and methods into the local community, business or residential, and get them involved with the initial planting and hope that there might be maybe a little gardening club that comes out of it, because then you create a sense of ownership, you engender local pride, and it's less likely to get vandalized as well. And the other thing we do is we tend to plant edibles. Why edibles? Because, well, a rosebush can be quite exclusive, whereas a tomato plant is very inclusive because we all eat, and it helps. They create great conversations, basically. And so we often, we plant strawberries. Hey, what's there not to love? Everyone, unless you're violently allergic to them, you get the gist. So yes, and so seats. So why seats? Because public seating in the UK, I can't speak for America, it's being ripped out because of certain elements consider their antisocial behaviour surrounding public seating, but so an antisocial minority affecting the social majority, And it's sort of local borough council's knee-jerk reaction to deal with it, just rip them out. But actually, people like seating. People like to stop. For the elderly, they need to rest. Sometimes a woman may need to breastfeed, or someone just wants to sit down and just take a moment, eat their lunch. There's lots of people that are quite solitary, and they use those spaces to go talk to other people. That's almost like another form of, it's the third space. You've got the first space, which is your home, the second space, which is your workspace, and then the third space, which is that space that belongs to everyone, where everyone is equal and everyone is welcome. So that may be a park, it may be the barber shop, it may be the local pub. In our case, it's the local pocket park that happens to grow edibles. So, we're championing public seating quite a lot at the moment, and that's our latest installation for the London Design Festival was all about seating. It's the first thing we've done that didn't have any planting. So, funnily enough, people have always identified us with being gardeners. I'm not a gardener. I'm an activist. I'm more of an activist than a gardener. Yes, I know stuff about planting. I've learned that along the way. I didn't when I started. I had no clue. I just knew that space at the top of my road shouldn't be built on, should be saved. It needs plants. It needs people taking ownership. And that's how it was born. And so it was never like a business plan I sat down with and said, oh, I'm going to do this. It sort of stumbled out. I think that's what, a bit like treading on that woman's toe in the lift. I kind of stumble upon my careers. And so it was another one of those. I was like, no, we need to save that space. I feel really passionate about keeping public space public. We don't have enough of it. London is really going through this mass expansion at the moment. So much building. And so it's really important to keep squares and spaces and little spaces, active spaces, where people can, if they can't get to the park, they can sit at the top of their street and have a bit of greenery to enjoy. So that's kind of my sort of mission at the moment.
And some might say, how does Mak Gilchrist from, the Addicted to Love videos and the face of Chanel Allure, how do we wind up at this edible bus stop place at this time? But if you go back throughout your career, you've always had those activists, those political roots, whether it's for ethical fashion modeling or wardrobe industry or whatever, and so you can sort of really see the natural progression of how we wind up here today.
Yeah. I mean, that's always been. I've always had that ethical stance. I was always someone that refused to wear a fur. That was something that, I've recently posted something about London Fashion Week. We're still trying to get them to ban fur on the catwalk. And I'm like, I just went back, how long have I been doing? I've been banging on about this for 36 years, and I will bang on about it another 36. As long as I've got breath in me, I'm going to say it's just not necessary. If you're an Inuit, okay. If you're, if that's part of your culture, you're an indigenous culture, that's fair enough. I'm not going to knock that. Otherwise, I just have a bit of a problem with animals being trapped and tortured. And yes, we all know, yes, people eat meat. I don't, but that's okay if you do. I don't have a problem with that. I just, we know there's some really horrendous things that are happening to animals in the name of fur or testing on them or even how they're being farmed now. So I just think we just need to respect not only the animals, but also the natural world around us. So it's always been something I've always felt strongly about. It's not something I ever had an epiphany about and said, oh, I must champion this. It was just there. It was just, I guess one of the things coming back to the punk era is that the image of punks is that they didn't think. Au contraire, we thought. We really did think. And I was someone who was also very involved with the reggae scene as well. There was that whole punky reggae thing that was very London. We crossed over. It's where Bob Marley's Punky Reggae Party song comes from. Mm-hmm. It was in London that he was played punk music, and he realised how so many of the things that the punks were singing about, well, actually a lot of what they were singing about, and there wasn't that much difference except for the beat of the music. And so for me, it was that era was all about the music I was listening to was educating me. So it was constantly, think. Just don't just take everything as presented, question, think, and be respectful about it. And so that's really been my journey throughout my life so far.
Sure. I've got 3 more questions for you if you have the time. I want to talk about 2016 was the 30th anniversary of the Addicted to Love video, and you all still get together, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But we're just bonded by this experience. I mean, if you told us that day, do you realise how epic this is? What a massive cult thing you've got involved with. I mean, to be honest, nowadays, if it was now, we'd all be rich because we'd all be opening malls or something like that. I mean, I wouldn't, but we probably would have had dolls of us by now. But we just went in, did our job. They're all really lovely girls, all of them, and it's a pleasure because of the video. We've been brought back together over the years, and which has helped us stay friends. But then we did go out on a night when one of them lives in Thailand most of the year, so she was coming to London. So we were like, right, we're going to make an effort. And so I said, let's all just meet up wherever, but one deal, we'll have to wear black. And you can wear your hair how you want, and we did, because I said, because there's going to be a group shot, and we really should all be in black, because I'm always the one that thinks about the social media aspect of it. And so there we are, looking fabulous in black, and we were in some bar, and they've got the barman, and I said, do you know who we are? Yeah. And I told him, he was like, yeah. I'm like, no, really? Yeah. Go on, look us up. Looked us up, came back, looked at us, went, I won't repeat because obviously you'll just have to bleep me, but he was just expletive, like, oh my, it really is you. Oh my God.
And that's great.
It was just great moment.
When you do these interviews, you never know if the parties involved, still want to talk about those things because they've done it so many times, they've talked about it so many times, but you really seem to be okay with it and still sort of embrace that part of your life, and that's really cool to see, that you don't shy away from that.
No, I can't, because it's brought me a lot, and although not money or fame as such, as I suppose cult status, but what I get when people figure out who it is, the smile that they get on their face, and like, wow, I can't believe it, really? And you get people taking pictures with you, and you're just like, I can detach myself from it. I don't, it doesn't make me a better person, but I get joy out of the fact that they're really made up about it. They're just like, oh, that's really cool, and you're really cool, and that's so nice, and it's just. So, yeah, I've talked about it a lot, but I've also figured out how to talk about it in a different way every time. You do get asked the same questions, but you kicked off with the first time somebody's asked me, is it true they resigned, the musicians? And so that was quite nice to actually say, no, they didn't, but they were there. So, yeah, and I regret, because in those days we didn't have mobile phones, so I have no photographs of the day. Which is a great shame, because otherwise I would have got the selfie with Robert Palmer or something. And the musicians and the girls getting their makeup on and everything. I can see it all, though. I can still see the day quite clearly, and sharing a bottle of wine with the girls and Terence at lunch, and him being hysterically funny. And let me tell you, most of the shots from the video are post that bottle of wine. He just warmed us up in the morning. Yeah, we were so young. It was just like literally a glass of wine, and we were like, woohoo! And those are the shots he used. So he knew exactly what he was doing. Exactly.
Well, I guess we should be thankful for the statute of limitations on that video. But that's quite high. I have to ask, whose idea was the lip licking? That's probably, to me, the most iconic shot in the whole video.
Yeah, no. Well, this is it. This is why I get that particular attention, is that when people, oh, you're the lip licker. Yeah. Actually, I maintain I had lipstick on my teeth. I think it probably was my idea, actually. It was post that glass of wine. I was old enough to drink, though. I was probably, how old was I then? 86? So I must have been about 21. Yeah.
Barely legal, huh? Well, the U.S. would have been barely legal. Over there, I guess you probably a little bit more lax on the drinking laws.
Yeah. Well, they give it to us in bottles over here, hardens us up for these dreadful winters that we have.
All right. Well, one final question. Ultimately, at the end of the day, what do you think you'll be most proud of about your career? What do you think you'll look back on and just be really satisfied and happy about?
About all of my careers is tenacity. I've hung in there. I hung in there with the modelling. I tried to be, I tried to be a professional, to be someone you'd want to have on a shoot, to be someone you want to work with here at the Edible Bus Stop. When I had my reggae record label, to put my money where my mouth is and to fund music that I felt very, very strongly about. So I think, I hope I'd be remembered as someone, she showed up and she was fun. And she made me smile. Yeah, I try to do that. I try to get people smiles on people's faces. So whether that was in the studio and being a good team player or being a good team player here at the Edible Bus Stop and putting smiles on faces when they walk past our installations in our gardens. Yeah, I think those are the things that I'd like to be remembered for.
That'll do it for another edition of Second Acts Podcast. I want to thank you, the listeners, for joining us once again. As always, Mikey Moratini does our music. Be sure to check out more of his stuff on SoundCloud. If you enjoy this podcast, please help spread the word and share us on social media. We'd also love to hear your thoughts about this or any other episode on our Second Acts Podcast Facebook page. And don't forget to rent or purchase my movie Fighting Bell on Amazon Instant Video. I'm your host, Sean Riley, and remember, F. Scott Fitzgerald once wrote, "There are no second acts in American lives, but there are on Second Acts Podcast." See you again in 2 weeks.